All right, we're starting into our second part of the class. The first part was basic motions and understanding of what we see. The second part is the history of astronomy. And the history of astronomy will actually tie into some science, some physics and stuff that we have to understand. And then the last part of the class, we're going to do a survey of all the things in the solar system. But starting with history of astronomy, we're first going to start with ancient sites. And astronomy is arguably the oldest science. It's the first thing that people tried to understand as far as ancient people is why did the sun change positions? Why do the stars move? Why does the sky look the way it is? And there was a lot of trying to understand why the sky was the way it was and how things worked. Now, history of the science of astronomy, we're going to go way back to ancient sites. Ancient sites means times before written record. And there's a whole study of this. It's called Archaeoastronomy, which combines archaeology and astronomy together. And this, I find this very interesting. In fact, that's an and, by the way. I give a whole class, one whole semester, where we study archaeoastronomy classes. Archaeoastronomy sites for the whole class for the whole semester. And we even take a field trip for several days, and it's a very good class, very fun class if you're into this kind of site. For this class, I'm just going to mention some of the most famous ones. This one here, and just our lighting, is Stonehenge. And Stonehenge is probably the most famous archaeoastronomy site in the world. And so, Stonehenge was built around 2500 BCE, okay? Which used to be BC, but now to be politically correct, we're BCE and CE instead of BC and AD. And this is in southern England, couple hours outside of London. Very cool site. If you've ever been there, you know that it's very neat. Nowadays, when you go there, unless you're on a special tour, you can't actually go inside to where the stones are. They just allow you to walk around the outside. Now, I've been there 3 times, and 2 of the 3 I've been able to go inside and do studying and been part of it. So it's really a neat place to be. But this is in southern England, and this was built starting around 3000 BC, but it got to its current position here around 2500 BC. And it's kind of fallen down, but that's 5,000 years ago. So 5,000 years, things are going to happen. But if you look, what it is it's a circle. It really started as a henge, which is a ditch. And you see this circular ditch out here around the outside. Obviously, this is a modern walkway right here. But they built this circular ditch region. And they built that ditch to delineate what we think is a sacred spot. And they say, oh, this is a special spot to them on the land. And then over hundreds of years, they started hauling these stones. These stones had to be hauled from about 10 to 20 miles away, weighing many, many tons. The largest ones were on the order of almost 10 tons worth of stone, which is the ones that were standing here and the one that's fallen over right next to it. And this is it ends up with 3 parts. You have an inner horseshoe, you have an outer circle, it's called the Sarsen circle. Then you have some stones out here on the outside called station stones. And this is a close-up of what the inside is. One of the things that's interesting about this site is this is what we call a Neolithic, which would be New Stone Age. It was built right on the edge of Stone Age, where the Stone Age turned into Bronze Age, where they started to get metals. And that changed everything. Okay? So this was kind of the last kind of Stone Age holdout. And even when they made the stones and they carved these stones to fit up here, they had to do it all by stone on stone. They would just smash the stone with another stone until they got it to the shape they wanted to. There was no carving of it. But they were very sophisticated. You see, they made these stones so that they were angled, so they would make a circle. It wasn't just rectangles. They actually cut angles in the tops. They made them match. They had lintels so the whole thing held together. Very sophisticated stone work here. And the cool thing about it, and where the astronomy part, this is the archaeological part, comes from, is that we know there's alignments. The main alignment is right here. So this would be what it would like in its heyday. This is the circle, what we call the Sarsen circle. Here's that horseshoe shape right here. And then this is in the center here. This is the big lintel. But the coolest thing about this, you see this ditch right here? This is the ditch on the outside right here. There's an opening to this direction right here. That direction is not north, south, or east, or west. In fact, north is this way. You see south is this way, so north is that way. So it's just a little bit east of north. That is made so if you stand in the center of the circle on June 21st, summer solstice, or what they call midsummer day, the sun will rise exactly over this stone here, what's called the heel stone. Now the interesting thing is because there's been change, it's been 4,000 years, the tilt of the Earth's axis has shifted. We're at 23.5 degrees currently. Back then it was closer to 24 degrees. That would change the position of where the sun was rising. But the heel stone actually has tilted a little bit, shifted over thousands of years. And so right now it still lines up. On the summer solstice, you go there with the 1,000 other people, and you can see this line up on the sunrise. In fact, I have a picture of that right here. This is it. You see the thousands of people right here. This is the heel stone, which is about like 100 yards away from the center of this. So there's no way that this happened by chance. They made the center of the circle, and they exactly figured out where to put this stone so the sun would rise over it on that one day of the year. And you can see the sun going right over the tip of this stone on that day of the year. So we know to them the summer solstice sunrise was very, very important. So the key alignment at Stonehenge is summer solstice sunrise. Now you saw that last picture, there were all kinds of other alignments or speculations. But this is the key one. This is the one we know for a fact they did. The other ones may be speculation. But there's a lot more to Stonehenge, but I'm not going to spend much time on that in this class. If you're more interested in that, take my Archaeoastronomy class, Astronomy 260. All right, let's talk about the pyramids. All right, these are the Egyptian pyramids. This is still under Archaeoastronomy. And these are the pyramids of Giza, which now is a suburb. It used to be its own town, but now it's a suburb of Cairo, because Cairo has gotten so large that it's engulfing this. In fact, Giza comes right up to the edge of the pyramids, and they had to stop the city. There's a golf course not very far away from encroaching on this fabulous archaeological site. Now, these are the three big pyramids, or the three pyramids of Giza. There are lots of pyramids in Egypt. People think there's just these three, and no, that's not the case at all. There's actually like 100 or more. A lot of them are much smaller. See these smaller pyramids? There's smaller pyramids around the bigger pyramids. And there's pyramids all up along the west side of the Nile. So for 1,000 years or more, that's how they were burying their pharaohs and important people. And so there's lots and lots of pyramids. Lots of them have never been studied at all. So there's lots of archaeology that still needs to be done in Egypt, but it's very heavily controlled by the Egyptian government, so you can't do a lot. All right, but if we look at it from the air, and so this is a pretty modern satellite picture right here. You see this is the city encroaching on it right here. They had to finally stop the city and say, hey, nope, nobody can get any closer, because this is all archaeological site. Now the interesting thing too is this actually, you can't see it here, but it goes up a hill. So this down here is in what the Nile Valley. And the Nile Valley was where all the crops and everything were, and the Nile would flood every year, and that water would then flood out and make the land fertile. As soon as the water receded, that's when they would plant their crops. And it was because the Nile was there that Egypt existed and was this great place. But the interesting things here, these pyramids right here, right? These pyramids were for different people. This is the Great Pyramid of Cheops. This is Khufu, and this is Menkaure, all right? This was essentially his son, and this was his grandson right here. Now, a couple of things that make this interesting is you see this, the Great Pyramid right here. This is the largest pyramid. Okay? Over 2.2 million stones were put in here to make this pyramid. But they lined up this edge of this edge right here, of the pyramid, to be within 6 arc minutes of perfectly north and south. Okay, so the only way you can do that is to use the stars. They had to use astronomy, and we think we know exactly how they did that. They did the same thing for these 2 pyramids too. They lined up from this corner to this corner. That's why you can draw a line from this corner through this corner, and it makes a perfect line going on that corner right there in this place. So they knew astronomy there. Also, within here, they only have entrances, and the entrances are only on the north side. Because to the Egyptians, the entrances were only on the north, because the north was a very special region, because the north pointed towards the circumpolar stars, or what the Egyptians called the imperishable stars. And the goal of the pyramids was to transport the pharaohs to the afterlife, where they could exist and do their pharaoh things in the afterlife. All right, so what are the alignments? Well, they are aligned to the cardinal points to an accuracy that we can only achieve about the same today. We can do a little bit better today because we have technology, but if you're doing with hand instruments, they did as good as could be done by anybody. So they were very accurate, and the cardinal points are very, very important to them. Okay? Now it's a little weird because north is down in this picture, south is up. So it's kind of flipped from the way you normally see it. They also have these interior shafts. So this is the Great Pyramid, or the Pyramid of Cheops, or Khufu. And this is the interior chamber. And so when you go in, the side right here, it goes in, it goes down to here. There's